Welcome to Stormworks, Engineering Meets Combat. In this series, we're diving into the world of shipbuilding, where engineering brilliance meets tactical warfare. Watch as we design, build, and command our cutting-edge fast attack vessel, crafted for speed, power, and precision. From intricate hull designs to advanced weapon systems, get ready to conquer the seas and skies.
In this episode, we're tackling the interior planning of the ship, starting with the critical placement of our 5 fuel tanks. The layout aims to improve safety and balance, ensuring that if we take damage, we won't lose all our fuel supply. And lastly, we're adding the guns. No, we're not finishing them at this point, but we need to check their fitment. This step is crucial to ensure we can properly maneuver them and allocate enough room for installing an autoloader. This preliminary placement helps us avoid running into problems later on and ensures the design can support both the weapons and their required systems efficiently. We'll revisit this in future episodes, but for now, it's all about positioning and planning. We've laid out the fuel tanks with a few key goals in mind: stability, balance, and a bit of extra safety in case of damage during battle. The middle tank sits centrally to provide core stability, while the left and right tanks are spread across both the front and back sections for even weight distribution. Up at the bow, we've positioned a forward tank, improving the overall balance, and finally, we have 2 aft tanks on either side of the engine bay. Not only does this setup distribute weight nicely, but it also acts as ballast, keeping the ship steady, even when we take hits. Next, we'll focus on defining the ship's interior rooms. Our primary goal is to create accommodation spaces with beds, adding necessary weight to bring the ship closer to its final mass. This will allow for more accurate engine and speed testing. As we fill out the rooms and walls, we'll not only be fine-tuning the weight balance, but also enhancing the ship's functionality. Additionally, we'll incorporate search and rescue features, such as designated seating areas and a dedicated medical bay for emergencies. For the ship's defense and operational effectiveness, we'll set aside rooms for ammunition crates and reinforce certain rooms and bulkheads with protection against flooding. This is all part of a well-rounded design aimed at ensuring the ship can endure a range of situations, from combat to rescue operations. We're adding more beds than we currently need, with the idea that we can later adapt these spaces into specialized rooms, depending on the ship's evolving needs. This flexibility allows us to modify areas for more specific roles, like additional storage, crew spaces, or even more specialized functions, as we get further into the build and better understand the ship's requirements. By planning ahead and allocating more room now, we'll have the ability to fine-tune and optimize the ship's layout later without major reworks. As you'll have seen in the intro, we've placed most of the bulk items such as fuel tanks, ammo storage, and rooms, though much of it was done somewhat randomly with a few strategic considerations. For instance, the med bay is located as close to the stairs as possible to minimize travel time during emergencies, a principle we've discussed in previous videos. Optional seating areas are also planned with efficiency in mind. The beds are positioned in the forward bow section to keep them away from critical systems. This way, if we take fire from the front, the ship's essential functions remain safer, allowing us more confidence when heading into enemy territory. Strategic positioning always matters, and this is one way to mitigate risk. To find the ship's center, particularly when placing the middle fuel tank, I use a bit of pseudomath. I position the tank halfway through the flat section before the bow narrows, then add about 30 to 40% of the bow's length. This method isn't perfect, but it usually gets me close enough for balance. When it comes to the engine room, I've lowered the floor to mitigate risk going forward. By doing this, the engines are placed farther from the top deck, making them less likely to take damage, especially if we're being pursued or shot at by helicopters or planes. This small adjustment can make a significant difference in protecting vital systems during combat, ensuring the engines stay operational for as long as possible. I've also added stairs and railings where it seemed fitting. While these are purely cosmetic additions, they contribute to the overall realism of the ship and make it easier to move around. Even though it doesn't impact the gameplay directly, it helps visually anchor the design, making everything feel more polished and structured. This same approach is applied to the exterior of the ship, with railings and a few staircases added for both design and practical reasons. They allow easy access to key areas, enhance the visual appeal, and offer an extra layer of safety to prevent falling off or to facilitate quick movement in critical situations. These details, although subtle, contribute to a more functional and realistic layout. As for the deck, we'll keep it open for now, maybe build a drone or a small rib to sit on, or just use the drone to blow things up. Versatility is key. Next, we'll ensure that we've allocated enough room for our weapon systems. We're adding 2 rear-facing autocannons, 2 missile racks, and a large autocannon at the front. Although we're not completing these systems in this episode, we want to make sure there's sufficient space for movement, and ideally, enough room to integrate an autoloader within the relatively small areas we've reserved. We're only adding the main components of the weapons in this phase, like the pivots, ammo storage, and basic belts, to ensure that we can achieve sufficient movement and functionality. This is good enough for now. We'll apply the same approach to the front, keeping things straightforward as we continue to test everything. We want to avoid overcomplicating the design at this stage, focusing instead on ensuring all components function correctly before moving on to further details. I added a few motors and rocket launchers to the back. They may change as we refine the design, but it's exciting to see everything coming together nicely. That wraps up this episode. We've covered the essential steps to setting up the ship's interior, ensuring we maintain both efficiency and performance as we progress. This foundational work will set the stage for the next phase, especially as we prepare to test our turrets and hybrid electric engine system. Stay tuned for the next episode, where we'll dive deeper into engine functionality and weapon systems. If you're enjoying the series, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next one.